So after 5 months of no new releases in cinema, after almost everyone's last movie in the cinema being Bloodshot, is Christopher Nolan here to save the cinema? Now, if you haven't seen Tenet already, do not worry, there's going to be no spoilers within this review whatsoever. I was trying to see it a second time before I reviewed it, but I went into town to see it yesterday, and every screening from 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock was fully booked, and I was not waiting around until half 8 to see a movie when I was in there at 1 o'clock. So I said, you know what, I think just going to review it. I'm going to try to see it again at some point this week, but I hope I can. I don't know if I will be able to, because New Mutant's coming out. I'm going to prioritise that. But honestly, do not worry, there can be no spoilers whatsoever in this review. So this is Christopher Nolan's 11th theatrically released movie. I've only seen 9 of them. The ones I haven't seen is Following and Insomnia. I do plan seeing them soon, but I was so hyped for this movie ever since, like, back in, I don't even know, March, when everything was getting cancelled and this movie kept staying there. I was like, oh, please stay there, please stay there. Of course, it did get pushed back. I think we're looking at about a month in total. It got pushed back. It kept getting pushed back 2 weeks in advance, and it got pushed back indefinitely. I was like, oh shit, we're probably not going to see this until 2020. But then they said, oh no, we're going to have this release in everywhere else except America, and then in America it's getting released on Friday as far as I know. So we got to see this pretty much early, which I was assuming was going to happen because everywhere else except America has kind of dropped the ball on this whole coronavirus thing. But I was so happy to actually get to go see it. Went to see it opening day of release. I actually booked a day off work to go and see this in the first IMAX showing, and it was great to go back to the cinema to see a live action, a new release, big massive blockbuster for the first time since, if you want to call Bloodshot a blockbuster. But the movie itself, I enjoyed it for the most part. There's some great elements to this, like the acting. Robert Patterson, of course, Batterbat. He's just going to be great as Batman. I just think this movie kind of portrayed a way that everyone's going to be able to see him other than Twilight. People who haven't seen Good Time or The Lighthouse, this movie I think is going to be the introduction to people as Robert Patterson as he is now, rather than the way he is in the Twilight movies. Like, literally, as you can see, I've got the poster here, and we got him up there, and I'm just so excited to see him. My kind of worry about him was, I always knew he'd be great as Batman, but I was thinking, will he be good as Bruce Wayne? But there's a scene in particular when he gets dressed up and he's going through this kind of safe, and as soon as he was walking through, I just seen Bruce Wayne. I just think he embraced the Bruce Wayne element there. So I think that kind of cemented it to me that he's going to be not only a great Batman, but a great Bruce Wayne. Just shows how great Robert Patterson was in this role. Also, John David Washington, I've also only seen him in Black Klansman, but of course he is Denzel Washington's son. He's just a great actor. I think he's going to be a name for me now personally, that whenever I see his name attached to the movie, I'm going to get excited. I'm definitely going to go see it because he's 2 for 2 with me at the moment, and I'm just excited to see what else he does because I just think he did great in this movie. He probably did even better in this movie than he did in Black Klansman. As well, the action in this movie is just fantastic. A lot of the action is either in reverse or moving forward because it's got time travel elements. So much is happening at once. You literally see people fighting as some of them are going forward in time, some are going back in time, but they're still fighting. You got car chases, same deal, backwards, front in time, all that works really well. Also, there's a plane crashing sequence, which it's not a spoiler, it was kind of heavily known about this, the fact that Christopher Nolan actually crashed an actual jumbo jet because he didn't know how else to do it and make it look realistic. So he bought an actual jumbo jet and actually crashed it, which just look, of course it is real, so it looks so realistic, but it just looked phenomenal on the big screen. I think this is the best possible way to watch this. Like, everyone was like, oh, they should just release this as streaming. No, this movie is made for the big screen. 100% you have to see this in the big screen because it looks a billion times better on the best and biggest screen you can possibly see it on. And now for me personally, I never really noticed scores for a movie. I notice them occasionally, like if it really stands out, like the classics like Superman the movie, Back to the Future. Lately there's been no scores that have really stuck out to me, but the score in this movie really stood out to me. Now, it wasn't actually scored by Hans Zimmer, who usually directs all of Christopher Nolan's movie. I think this is actually the only one he hasn't scored. This was actually scored by the guy who scored Black Panther and actually won the Oscar for that. But I just thought the score was great. I haven't actually downloaded the soundtrack or anything. I just thought this score really stood out to me and just worked really well with the movie that it was being put in. And people have been kind of saying this is like a kind of a James Bond Mission Impossible-esque movie, and I 100% agree with that. It's a big globe-trotting adventure. They're going all over the place, different places. We see them in the boats, we see them all over the place, really hot landscapes, really cold landscapes, and it just goes all over the place, making this world feel absolutely massive. And this movie does demand repeat viewings, like majority of Christopher Nolan's movies. Like the two movies I have here, Prestige and Inception, they both demand actual repeat viewings. But the downside to this is they demand repeat viewings because they're so intriguing you want to see what happens again. Not because you don't fully understand. There's so much in this movie. Every single scene in this movie is so integral to the plot that you cannot miss anything. You have to be paying attention for everything, which just kind of made this movie a big mess for me because there's just so much happening, so much you have to pay attention. Like I had to go toilet one stage because I was bursting to go, and when I got back, I was like, okay, I had to quickly kind of catch up on what happened because there's just so much happening. And I was only gone for about 2 minutes, so the fact that I missed 2 minutes and I was kind of lost for a little bit shows how much integral this movie is, which kind of makes it kind of fall apart for me. The fact that there's just so much happening, it feels like Christopher Nolan was trying to outsmart everyone, trying to make himself look like such a genius, and in doing so, he kind of belittles a lot of people because like just so much is happening. He thinks he's trying to be real smart and doing the way everything he does, and for that reason, I kind of lost a bit of interest in it just because I felt like he was just overdoing everything to make himself look better, and it's just I didn't think that really helped the movie at all. As well, our characters, I didn't actually give a shit about any of them. Like you got Dunkirk, where because the kind of the background of that movie, you're not really meant to care about any of the characters. You're meant to be looking at the actual story itself. But in Dunkirk, I cared about the characters. Inception and Prestige, to go back to them, I really cared about those characters. But the characters in this movie, I actually didn't care. I didn't believe any of their motivations. They could have lived, they could have died. I didn't care. Like even John David Washington doesn't even have a name. His character's name is the protagonist. We don't never learn his name, and the fact that we get that, you can't really attach to the characters. You don't believe their motivation, the relationship between John David Washington and Robert Patterson. I like their relationship. I think they work really well together, but I just don't really buy the motivation at all. And when you got a big movie like this, a big spy espionage movie, you do need to be able to feel for these characters. You do need to be understand these characters. You do need to enjoy these characters. But for this movie, I didn't feel any of that for these characters. And I did compliment the score on this movie, but kind of to take away from the score, the actual audio of this movie was kind of really bad at parts. There's so many parts where the audio was so loud in the background noise you couldn't even actually hear the characters, and sometimes they're saying, sometimes we're getting a bit of dialogue, but then there's like the plane for example behind is so loud you can't really hear what they're saying. I don't know, that could have been just my cinema, but for me that's what's the biggest takeaway. Like I don't even know what they're saying right now because the audio is just so all over the place. Sometimes it's ridiculously loud, sometimes it's ridiculously quiet, and it just, I didn't like that. Again, it could be the cinema I was in, but from watching the movie, that was just a big takeaway from me. Now, as I said though, this movie does demand repeat viewings, so maybe on my second watch I will enjoy this a lot more. But at the moment, this is down the bottom of my Christopher Nolan movies. Of all 9 I've seen, I think I would actually probably, I had Dunkirk and Inception below this, or not Inception, Interstellar below this, but I think I actually might put this down the bottom. I think this is probably Christopher Nolan's weakest movie out of 9 I've seen. I don't know if Insomnia or The Following are any better or any worse, but honestly I just think this is kind of a mess. I just think this is Christopher Nolan getting a bit too big for who he is, thinking he's untouchable, but I just don't really enjoy this movie. I do want to see it again, hoping I will enjoy it a bit more, but for my first viewing I really wasn't a fan of Tenet. As I said though, I do want to see it again, but if you have seen Tenet, let me know your thoughts on Tenet in the comment section down below. Also though, if you haven't seen it, I do recommend you to go see it, just for the fact that it's a new blockbuster on the big screen. It is a new Christopher Nolan movie, of course, and it's just go support the movie. I'd love to see this movie do really well, and then other movies seeing how well they could do in 2020 and then come back, like A Quiet Place for example. I would love if they came back to 2020 so we could see that. So if you do want to go see this movie, definitely go support it in cinema. It's never going to be the same at home, so definitely go and see this movie. But as always, thanks for watching.